Tall and thin and young and lovely, the girl from Ipanema was walking. And when she passes, each one she passes goes. When she walks, she's like a samba that swings so cool and sways so gently that when she passes, each one she passes goes. Oh, but he watches so sadly. How can he tell her he loves her? Yes, he would give his heart gladly. But each day when she walks to the sea, she looks straight ahead, not at him.
Welcome to the Derek J. Show. Another episode this Wednesday, April 30th, 2014. Boy, it's exciting to be with you this morning. Got a late start because of the rain. You know what it's like when you look out the window when you wake up and it's raining? It's one of those mornings. So I made myself some coffee, added some cream and sugar. It's hitting the spot. Now, last night I got a few stories together for this presentation. And the topic, the theme of the stories that I was selecting seemed to be all about rape. It's not my fault. The White House put out a PSA about rape. It's quite serious. So I want to take this episode seriously. Here, I'll play you a clip from the White House PSA, public service announcement here.
We have a big problem.
She walks to the sea. She looks straight ahead, not at him.
Here, let's let this song play out. I'll let you know what else is coming up in this hour. White Privilege at Princeton. An excellent article penned by a student at Princeton who elaborates on his impression of white privilege. Definitely worth considering. Licks, a 3D printing pen. We've got some rape statistics coming up, so get ready for that. And U.S. senators remove requirement for disclosure over drone strike victims. Bus passengers beat up a man harassing an elderly couple. And Jason Bullock defends Bundy from the White House racist talking points. All that and more coming up on the Derek J. Show. But first, the One is Too Many PSA from the White House, starring Benicio del Toro and a few other stars.
We have a big problem, and we need your help.
It's happening on college campuses, at bars, at parties, even in high schools.
It's happening to our sisters and our daughters,
our wives and our friends.
It's called sexual assault, and it has to stop.
We have to stop it. So listen up.
If she doesn't consent, or if she can't consent, it's rape, it's assault.
It's a crime. It's wrong.
If I saw it happening, I was taught you have to do something about it.
If I saw it happening, I speak up.
If I saw it happening, I'd never blame her. I'd help her.
Because I don't want to be a part of the problem.
I want to be a part of the solution.
We need all of you to be part of the solution. This is about respect. It's about responsibility.
It's up to all of us to put an end to sexual assault. And that starts with you.
Because one is too many.
Excellent sentiment from the White House and several of those stars, but it leaves one thinking person wondering, why stop there? Why limit it to just men beating women or raping women when we know that, according to the statistics in the U.S., men are raped far more than women thanks to prison populations. And the people who are starring in that public service announcement, Barack Obama and Joe Biden have everything to do with the responsibility for those rapes. They can stop them today by releasing peaceful people from cages. They could stop them today by no longer confining human beings to concrete cells for crimes involving no victims. It's not justice. It only results in further rape, and they clearly don't care. So this video is insulting to the thinking man, because he knows that it's a bunch of men in this video. There are no women. It's the language used is being treated like sexual assault is a strictly male on female crime, when that's just not the case. And I don't say that with no facts or evidence. I've got rape statistics that I'm ready to share with you, because I was curious about this and I looked it up last night. Now, according to statisticbrain.com, the source being the U.S. Bureau of Justice, the United Nations, and a few other studies, the average number of rape cases reported in the U.S. annually is 89,000. I'll screen share this graphic with you so you're able to follow along the path that I'm reading. Now, the percent of women who experiences attempted or completed rape is 16%. Percent of men who experienced an attempted or completed rape is 3% of that number. So 89,000 is the average number of rape cases reported in the U.S. annually. How many men were raped in prison? Let's pull up the next bit of rape statistics here. And I think I have to go up a little bit. Yep. In 2010, Human Rights Watch estimated that at least 140,000 inmates had been raped while incarcerated. And that's not instances of rape. That's individuals who are being raped. The source on that, No Escape, Male Rape in U.S. Prisons, Human Rights Watch, paragraph 1, Summary and Recommendations from 2007. You can read the official report right here. It's all in black and white. And 140,000, quite a bit more than 89,000. So what's the deal? What's the discrepancy in these numbers that are being reported? Well, we're seeing a sexual assault public service announcement coming out of the White House saying that men need to do more to prevent women from being sexually assaulted. While the sentiment there, I'm sure, is well intended, it's almost as if women don't have agency, that they don't have the freedom to engage in sexual conduct or refuse it, that they don't make choices that lead up to the eventual circumstance. Found this statistic to be interesting, that the percent of college rapes that are never reported to authorities, 95%. Percent of rapes where both victim and perpetrator had been drinking, almost 50%. Rape location statistics. This one is also interesting. Most rapes, over 30%, happen at the perpetrator's home. So what in the world are the victims doing there? Have they no agency? Do they not control their bodies, or are they abducted and raped? Could be. And I think it's a lot more likely that women have agency. They make choices. They may make choices that they regret. I don't mean to belittle rape. I can already tell people are going to say, oh, Derek is minimizing rape in America. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just trying to put things in perspective. That women are not the most raped in America. Men are. That's why it's strange for a man to see, a man who's been to jail, to see a public service announcement about stopping rape and telling men to talk with other men about not raping. The problem is so much deeper than that. It's about how children are raised, either with empathy or not. This is going to be an ongoing topic of conversation, I can tell, and it's one I'm dead-face serious about. You know, this is not a joke. It's something very serious. So, the hypocrisy of a state, agents of government who use coercion, threats of death to force compliance on a population. Talking about the evils of rape? Hypocrites. They use coercion as their sole tool of control. And they have the audacity, the gall, to put out a propaganda piece diminishing the agency of women. It's okay for government folks to use coercion and threats thereof. No. Alright, I can't continue with that. It's just disturbing. I thought, what do I do? Create my own PSA and overlay the video with statistics about male rape in prisons and... No. Maybe another video parodying the PSA, talking about how many people die at the hands of police that they never consented to. You know, if consent matters, then what about all the people who didn't consent to the bailout? What about all the people who didn't consent to the wars? If consent matters, then shouldn't the American people have a choice? Shouldn't each individual person have a choice? If not, isn't that rape? Removing the agency from another individual by the threats of force and death and caging and beatings? Yeah, that's exactly what it is. These criminals ought to be disgusted with themselves. And these celebrities, I don't blame them. They're not geniuses. They can't see through the obvious. They can't see the hypocrisy. It's up to people like us to make that argument for the people. And it's just... Oh, it's something that makes me tired. And feel heavy thinking about the weight of the responsibility to help people who can't think. Let's move on. There's an article from thecollegefix.com in which a poster child for white privilege has written a piece on white privilege, and it's worth sharing. This from Jennifer Cabaney, the associate editor of thecollegefix.com. He's 20, he's white, He's a freshman at Princeton University. And according to the ethic and feminist studies college students and professors who frequently and vehemently complain that this country is steeped in racism and sexism and is only fair and just and equal for white heterosexual males, he is the poster child for so-called white privilege. His name is Tal Fortgang, and he's just 8 months into his Ivy League experience. He's been told on numerous occasions to check his privilege, a phrase that has taken social media justice campaigning by storm. And it's meant to remind white heterosexual males that they have it so good because they're white heterosexual males. They haven't faced rough times, and they don't know what it's like to be judged by the color of their skin. Oh, but they do. Those sick of being labeled are the very same ones doing it to others. And Tal Fortgang has a powerful message for them. Here it is, quote. This is his article that I believe he published on his own blog. It's quite long. Let's get into it. I think you're going to enjoy it. Get your coffee ready. There's a phrase that floats around college campuses, Princeton being no exception, that threatens to strike down opinions without regard for their merits, but rather solely on the basis of the person that voiced them. Check your privilege, the saying goes, and I've been reprimanded by it several times this year. The phrase, handed down by my moral superiors, descends recklessly like an Obama-sanctioned drone and aims laser-like at my pinkish-peach complexion, my maleness, and the nerve I display in offering an opinion rooted in a personal Walshesang. Check your privilege, they tell me in a command that teeters between an imposition and to actually explore how I got where I am, and a reminder that I ought to feel personally apologetic because white males seem to pull the most strings in the world. I do not accuse those who check me and my perspective of overt racism, although the phrase, which assumes that simply because I belong to a certain ethnic group I should be judged collectively with it, toes that line. But I do condemn them for diminishing everything I have personally accomplished, all the hard work I have done in my life, and for ascribing all the fruit I reap not to the seeds I sow, but to some invisible patron saint of white maleness who places it out before me before I even arrive. Furthermore, I condemn them for casting the Equal Protection Clause, indeed the very idea of meritocracy, as a myth, and for declaring that we are all governed by invisible forces some would call stigmas or societal norms, that our nation runs on racist and sexist conspiracies. Forget you didn't build that. Check your privilege and realize nothing you've accomplished is real. But they can't be telling me that everything I've done with my life can be credited to the racist patriarchy holding my hand throughout the years of education and eventually guiding me into Princeton. Even that is too extreme. So to find out what they're saying, I decided to take their advice. I actually went and checked the origins of my privileged existence, to empathize with those whose underdog stories I can't possibly comprehend. I have unearthed some examples of the privilege with which my family was blessed, and now I think I better understand those who assure me that skin color allowed my family and I to flourish today. Perhaps it's the privilege my grandfather and his brother had to flee their home as teenagers when the Nazis invaded Poland, leaving their mother and 5 younger siblings behind, running and running until they reached a displaced persons camp in Siberia, where they would do years of hard labor until the bitter cold until World War II ended. Maybe it was the privilege my grandfather had of taking the local rabbi's work in that DP camp, telling him that the spiritual leader shouldn't do hard work, but should save his energy to pass Jewish tradition along those who might survive. Perhaps it was the privilege my great-grandmother and those 5 great-aunts and uncles I never knew had of being shot into an open grave outside of their hometown. Maybe that's my privilege. Or maybe it's the privilege my grandmother had of spending weeks upon weeks on a death march through Poland forests in sub-zero temperatures, one of just a handful to survive, only to be put in Belsen concentration camp, where she would have died, but for the Allied forces who liberated her and helped her regain her health and her weight after she dwindled to barely 80 pounds. Perhaps my privilege is that those two resilient individuals came to America with no money and no English, obtained citizenship, learned the language, and met each other. That my grandfather started a humble wicker basket business with nothing but long hours, an idea, and an iron will. To paraphrase the man I never met, I escaped Hitler. Some business troubles are going to ruin me. Maybe my privilege is that they worked hard enough to raise 4 children and send them to Jewish day school and eventually City College. Perhaps it was my privilege that my own father worked hard enough in City College to earn a spot at a top graduate school, got a good job, and for 25 years got up well before the crack of dawn, sacrificing precious time he wanted to spend with those he valued most, his wife and kids, to earn that living. I can say with certainty there was no legacy involved in any of his accomplishments. The wicker business isn't that influential. Now, would you say we've really been privileged? That our success has been gift-wrapped? That's the problem with calling someone out for the privilege which you assume has defined their narrative. You don't know what their struggles have been, what they may have gone through to where they are today. Assuming they've benefited from power systems or other conspiratorial imagery denies them credit for all they've done. Things which you may not even conceive. You don't know whose father died defending your freedom. You don't know whose mother escaped oppression. You don't know who conquered their demons, or may still be conquering them now. The truth is, though, that I've been exceptionally privileged in my life, albeit not in the way any detractors would have it. It has been my distinct privilege that my grandparents came to America. First, that there was a place at all that would take them from the ruins of Europe, and second, that there was a place, one where they could legally enter, learn the language, and acclimate to a society that ultimately allowed them to flourish. It was their privilege to come to a country that grants equal protection under the law to its citizens, that cares not about religion or race, but the content of your character. It was my privilege that my grandfather was blessed with resolve and an entrepreneurial spirit, and that he was lucky enough to come to a place where he could realize the dream of giving his children a better life than he had. But far more important for me than his attributes was the legacy he sought to pass along. It forms the basis of what my detractors call my privilege, but which actually should be praised as one of altruism and self-sacrifice. Those who came before us suffered for the sake of giving us a better life. When we similarly sacrifice our descendants by caring for the planet, it's called environmentalism, and it's applauded. When we do it by passing along property and a set of values, it's called privilege. And when we do it by raising questions about our crippling national debt, we're called Tea Party radicals. Such sacrifice of any form shouldn't be scorned, but admired. My exploration did yield some results. I recognized that it was my parents' privilege, and now my own, that there is such a thing as the American dream, which is attainable for even a penniless Jewish immigrant. I am privileged that values like faith and education were passed along to me. My grandparents played an active role in my parents' education, and some of my earliest memories included learning the Hebrew alphabet with my dad. It's been made clear to me that education begins in the home, and the importance of parents' involvement with their kids' education, from mathematics to morality, cannot be overstated. It's not a matter of black or white, male or female, or any other division which we seek. It's a matter of the values we pass along, the legacy we leave that perpetuates privilege. And there's nothing wrong with that. Behind every success, large or small, there is a story. And it isn't always told by sex or skin color. My appearance certainly doesn't tell the whole story, and to assume that it does, and that I should apologize for it, is insulting. While I haven't done everything for myself up to this point in my life, someone sacrificed themselves so that I can lead a better life. But that is a legacy I am proud of. I have checked my privilege, and I apologize for nothing. Those are the words of Tal Fortgang at Princeton University. The story at collegefix.com. It's a story I can relate to. I've been told to check my privilege. Being a white male, I hear that quite often. Especially in public school, that was the most common place to hear it. There weren't many varieties of skin color where I attended school. And so what few minorities attended would occasionally give me grief. I almost am tempted to journey back into my memory and think about the people who gave me trouble and what their skin color was and collectivize that way. But I won't yield to that temptation. It's wrong to collectivize. The way to move forward is to treat individuals as individuals and recognize that we are all unique. We all have an untold story. We can all be proud of something. We need not put others down for what came before them, but hold individuals accountable for their actions and the effects of their actions and the decisions they make. One of my favorite quotes of all time, I used to have it hanging above my door so that I would remember it every time I left. The thing about choices is, once you make them, they turn around and make you. What kind of choices are you making today? Well, U.S. senators removed a requirement for disclosure over drone strike victims yesterday. TheGuardian.com is where I found this news. Don't count on the American media to report it. It's far too important for the American media to handle. TheGuardian.com reports that at the behest of the Director of National Intelligence, U.S. senators have removed a provision from a major intelligence bill that would require the President to publicly disclose information about drone strikes and their victims. The bill, authorizing intelligence operations in fiscal 2014, passed out of the Senate Intelligence Committee in November. And it originally required the President to issue an annual public report clarifying the total number of combatants and non-combatant civilians killed or injured by drone strikes in the previous year. It did not require the White House to disclose the total number of strikes worldwide. But The Guardian has confirmed that Senate leaders have removed the language as they prepare to bring the bill to the floor for a vote, after the Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper, assured them in a recent letter that the Obama administration was looking for its own ways to disclose more about its highly controversial drone strikes. The executive branch is currently exploring ways in which it can provide the American people more information about the United States' use of force outside areas of active hostilities. To be meaningful to the public, any report, including the information described above, would require context and be drafted carefully so as to protect against the disclosure of intelligence sources and methods of classified information. We're confident we can find a reporting structure that provides the American people additional information to inform their understanding of important governmental operations to protect our nation, while preserving the ability to continue these operations, Clapper continued. Another provision, which would require alternative intelligence analysis, as well as commensurate congressional notification, should an intelligence agency consider legal action against a U.S. citizen, has been moved to a classified annex of the bill. Lawmakers were said to remove the provision in hopes of passing the full bill in the coming weeks. The removal of the drone transparency requirement is the latest in a pattern by legislators to preserve the status quo surrounding the skies. In January, the Senate obstructed an effort by the Obama administration that would have removed the CIA from drone operators and given responsibility for them to the Defense Department, which conducts parallel and occasionally complementary drone strikes. Feinstein, the chairwoman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, has recently been locked in a different sort of classification battle, an effort to compel the Obama administration to declassify aspects of a major report into the CIA's post-9/11 torture of terrorism detainees completed by her committee. But Feinstein has been a long defender of the CIA's drone strikes. During a February 2013 confirmation hearing for the CIA director, John Brennan, Feinstein stated that the CIA's targeting procedures kills only single digits of civilians annually, an assertion that cannot be independently confirmed because of the official secrecy surrounding the strikes. Do you see how this works? The propaganda machines in the media can't be precise. They can't be clear about what's actually happening. So I'll break it down for you. You already know this. The federal government has control over drones, flying death robots. So there's an agency of people who you probably didn't vote for, who you've never met, who believe that they have the authority to take from you, spend the fruits of your labor and the promised fruits of your children's and their children's labor, to spend today on the here and now. What are they spending on? Toys, travel, vacations, opulent mansions. Living a life of luxury on the backs of others would be bad enough, but to add insult to injury, they purchase flying death robots. This is no joke. Just a few hundred people have an army of flying death robots. And while they claim to be accountable to the people, look what they're doing. Look what you're reading in a British newspaper. That the so-called representatives of the American people, the U.S. senators, which are supposed to be some sort of check and balance on the power of the executive branch. No. They want to keep it a secret, what they do with these drones. They want to keep it a secret what happens when they blow people up. These psychopaths take from you, spend on flying death robots, and then want to keep it a secret? Who do they think they are? In 2014, the jig is up. We're on to you. We know what you in government are up to. You can't keep it a secret. And while, yes, you probably do have some secrets, what you do out in the open is criminal enough, justification enough to end your reign. We will not comply with the unethical orders of power mongers and kings. No. Technology has empowered the individual past the point of the divine right of kings, and each individual man can decide for himself whether or not he will live out his conscience or bow down his head and kiss the ring. You know where the future of this goes. It's flying death robots today, not somewhere in the future. That's happening right now. Most people are willing to keep complying, to put up and shut up. They're not willing to stick their heads out for anything. I'm suggesting that you muster the courage to do something. Make a change in your own life. There's always some way that you can either empower others or yourself. Take those steps. Plant a garden. Learn how to program code. Use alternative currencies like Bitcoin. Download the Peacekeeper app. That's new, peacekeeper.org. It's still in beta version, but it could change the world. The days of relying on the federal government are over. We can see right through it. And as evidence, I want to show you what the mainstream media, CNN, is trying to paint the picture of Cliven Bundy as some racist lunatic. But a black man who supports Bundy eloquently defends him against these accusations. Here's a clip.
Beginning, where are you from? I know you're a veteran. Was it Army?
Yes, sir.
You were in the Army? And you came to this area outside of Vegas when you heard about this story. Why?
Well, I live in Vegas, and I heard everything that was going on. You know, this is a fight against an oppressive government, and I had the chance to come help out and take a stand, and I did. When you served, these beliefs that you had when you were serving in the Army, you know, why is it that you believe we have an oppressive government? I took an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And there are domestic enemies in the current administration.
In the Obama administration?
Correct.
Okay. Now, when you got down there and you started meeting Mr. Bundy and his kids, his grandkids, all those folks there, had you heard of his theories on race and the African American community?
He never spoke to me about any race type issues or anything like that when I first met him. The point he was trying to make is, would the African American community be better off having families, being productive? That's what he meant by picking cotton, being productive, doing something, having jobs, being with their families, as opposed to how they are now. You see the majority of them grow up with no fathers in the homes, you know, broken families, you know, living in broken communities, living on government handouts. Is it better to be a slave under someone else or a slave under an oppressive government?
Yeah.
Trading one form of slavery for another.
Sure, but he said, I guess maybe it was his choice of words, they put their young men in jail, they abort their children because they never learned how to pick cotton. He came on the show last night and said that, you know, back in the days of the South, when they had chickens and something to do, is much better than an era now where they can vote and marry whoever they want and even become president. Those ideas don't, as an African American, don't offend you in any way?
Doesn't offend me at all, because the point he's trying to make, as I stated earlier, the cotton picking statement was more of he meant to say, or what he meant by that was being productive, you know, having a job, having something to do, instead of going out and being a criminal, being a degenerate, things like that.
So you told one of my colleagues you're willing to take a bullet for this guy.
Correct.
And
I still stand by that statement.
And you're a volunteer? You're not being paid, or?
I am a volunteer here of my own volition, not being paid at all.
And would you really be willing to spill the blood of another American over a fight over, you know, where these cows eat?
This isn't about the cows. This is about a government, a federal government, overstepping its bounds. This is a states' rights issue. We are the sovereign state of Nevada. We are the sovereign people of the United States.
Okay, Jason Bullock, we appreciate you helping us understand your mentality. Thank you so much for your time.
Eloquently stated by Jason Bullock. A wonderful interview, and I'm delighted that someone was willing to step up to defend Cliven Bundy, not his comments, as racist as they were, but direct the dialogue. This is not about racism. This is a states' rights issue, property rights issue. It's about an oppressive government. And people are sick of it. We can see right through the propaganda. You can see the talking points coming down from the White House. And thanks to alternative media, like this program and others, we're seeing right through the propaganda. We're not going to take a bite out of it. If you want to support programs like this one, I ask that you make a donation at donate.peacenewsnow.com. You can check out all the work that I'm doing at derekj.me. Using these QR codes presented on your screen, you can donate any cryptocurrency, and if you don't see one that you'd like to give, just message me at derekjfreeman@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to include another QR code just for you. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll be back with you tomorrow with hopefully some good news. Peace.